Oh, we're live, everybody. Okay, so
Okay.
Monique wanted to go ahead and start. We're gonna go around and do introductions. And Monique wanted to go ahead and get started. Can you tell us about yourself? Anything that you'd like to share? Um, are you if you guys want to speak up about if you're a trans supporter, an ally, or a trans person, or just give us a short introduction, I guess, and we'll start with you, Monique, since you're willing to go first.
Sure. I am trans. I'm non-binary. I go by they them. Gender non-conforming. I'm a social work student. And I was kind of invited, kind of today, right? Yeah. So I was interested in just kind of seeing what y'all are about. So that's me.
Perfect. Thank you for being
I'd be
here.
happy to go next.
All right, is that Valkyrie? All right, go ahead.
So I'm Valkyrie. I'm a trans woman. I've been an activist since I was in first grade, and I heard the story of my first grade teacher's friend who was a person of color died from a burst appendix because they couldn't find a non-segregated hospital in time. And yeah, so long time activist.
Well, thank you for being here. I look forward to learning from everybody. Does anybody else want to jump up or and introduce
I'll
themselves?
go.
All right, Gregory.
My name's Gregory. I'm from South Georgia. I'm an activist, social justice warrior. I've been an activist since 2015 when Bernie Sanders first ran for office. And I'm fighting the good fight, fighting back against the forces of evil that are going against the trans community, going against women's rights. I'm a fighter for equality for all, justice for trans men and women who have been wrongfully murdered, especially the cases that do go unchecked, the cold cases and all that.
All right, well, thank you for being here, Gregory. Let's see, do we have anyone else that's new? Sasha, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right. Hi, I'm Sasha. I'm from East Tennessee. I'm a trans woman. I started my transition about 5 years ago. I'm kind of new to like podcast type stuff and political speaking, anything like that. Mostly I just write out posts on social media and share links. I'm not like a strong activist or anything, but I'm happy to be here, happy to be involved.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Sasha. Let's see, Jamie, would you like to go ahead and give an introduction?
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm also a trans woman. I don't know what all I should say for an intro here.
That's fine. Yeah. That's fine if you want to just stop there, and that's great.
I didn't know what else to say, so
No, you're fine. You're fine. All right, and then let's see. Angela, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure.
All right.
My name is Angela. I'm a cis woman. I try to be an ally to the trans community whenever I can, anyways. And I'm also part of the LGBTQIA plus community.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for being here. And then David, last but not least, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is David Allen Moon from Dave Moon TV. I'm considered a straight male, he, him. I consider myself an activist for all human beings that are dealing with this terrible system that we're confronted with. And I'm also here to learn and listen. I do like to talk. I have been a streamer since 2018, researching everything. And I'm glad to be part of this panel. Thank you all for allowing me to be here. And by the way, I'm in Cothet territory, QATHET. I always do my land recognition. That's the Cothet territory, which is the land of the Flamin people, my wife. And I'm also from Weewakai Nation, which is just up the coast a little bit. So consider me the, I don't know, some sort of indigenous streamer representative. Thank you all.
All right, thank you for being here, David. So yeah, let's get into it. And then I think what we're gonna do tonight is just have like an open discussion, and like people can speak if they want to. That way, like nobody feels pressured. And we'll just bring up different subjects. Like, but I'd like for you. I think Valkyrie, you had something that you wanted to bring up. So if you had something in mind, you can go ahead and do that. But no pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the news from Missouri. Essentially banning anyone who is autistic or has depression from affirming their genders. Like that's just messed up. Autism is not an intellectual disability by any measure. And like depression, it's kind of an intrinsic part of being trans, just because of the nature of like having dysmorphia and stuff like that.
I think there might be some feedback on somebody's mic. You might have to mute.
My mic's off.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So how do people? Keep going. I'm listening.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So how do people feel about what Valkyrie said? So this there's also a news article here. The state's Attorney General Andrew Bailey announced an emergency regulation on Thursday that aims to limit access to gender affirming care for Missourians by setting sweeping new rules for those seeking treatment. He said, I will always fight to protect children because gender transition interventions are experimental. And then he goes on to talk about science and et cetera, et cetera. So basically making it extremely hard for people to transition in Missouri, it sounds like. Does anyone else want to speak on that? Oh, go ahead.
The whole idea that like you're protecting children, no. Like if I hadn't spent my entire childhood being told that I was a boy and these are the things that boys do, I would have come out as transgender before I even hit high school. Like the only thing that stopped me was that I had these backwards ideas that this is what boys had to be. You know? And like that's absolutely not the case at all. And I don't identify with those things at all.
I had very similar experiences to that with specifically growing up in a conservative Christian environment, and it was openly anti-LGBT, including
very rude. And you know, I'd like to go and interview these Karens and see why they feel kind of stuff that's happening.
I do think that's another thing that we should probably talk about is like even just like what being transgender is. Like at its base, because like when someone says that they're a man, like what is it that you immediately associate them with? What would you assume that person likes?
My point of view on that is, if somebody says they're male or female, then that's what they are, because trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary people are non-binary.
Yeah, absolutely. But like from a basic societal point of view, you know what I mean? There's like on a very basic level, like when someone says that they're a man, there are certain things we associate them with. You know what I mean? And it is very backwards, but it's where society's at right
I think for me, like it's been a lot of unlearning those norms and not, and challenging that. And so for me, I come from like a Hispanic Mexican culture where, masculinity is put at the forefront, is, put over women and femme people. So it's kind of like this toxic thing. And I was like, I just want to throw that away. Like, I don't want to subscribe to that. Like, that's not something that's part of me. Like,
right. Absolutely.
I don't want that in my life. So for me, like the biggest, like, screw you is to like throw away like my gender altogether. Like, okay, let's
Right.
just go here. And when people like, it's like a talking point, as well, because people are like, well, what does that mean for you? Like, I can be tough, but I can be also soft, So we like say, okay, men are supposed to be tough and women are supposed to be like soft, but I can be both. So, like, what does it really mean? What is like gender? Like things are just overly gendered. And that's kind of a little bit of my kind of perspective on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of where I was going with it, is that like these are societal constructs that like they do need to be disposed of, but until they are disposed of, the way that people understand it is like if I said that I was a man, people would automatically associate me with things like going out and playing in the mud and getting dirty and like owning lots of tools. These really, really, honestly outdated ideas, but these ideas that a lot of people share. And so when I tell people that I'm a woman, what I'm telling them is I don't like these things, and that's really what it boils down to is like I know what I was born as. Believe me, I know painfully well, but that doesn't mean that I want people to automatically associate me with these things that I am not associated.
I could totally relate to that because I didn't want to be subservient to anyone. So I don't want to be seen as a woman because I don't want to be I don't want to be subservient in my culture. I don't want to be downgraded. And
yeah, absolutely.
And that was kind of like a frustration for me. But yeah.
Did I freeze? Can everyone still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Amerikkka.
still hear you. I'm just taking a step back and letting other people speak. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, that's basically my whole take on it. That like that's the part that I think that a lot of people in the quote unquote gender critical movement, like they fail to understand. And that's kind of the approach that I've tried to take when I'm talking to people, trying to like dismantle these what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out here.
Just like norms and systems.
Yeah, like dismantle their hate. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because
This
a lot of it is. Go ahead.
I've seen a lot of gender critical stuff on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, and I listen to the Transatlantic Call-In show and stuff like that. And you see a lot of gender critical types talking about how, trans people transition just because they want to be to follow this particular gender stereotype. But it's like, well, I'm a trans woman. I regularly wear makeup. I wear t-shirts and jeans most of the time. I collect weapons. I go hiking. So it's not really about gender roles. It's about our identity. So it's who we are as people. And you can have women, be they cis or trans, and they can be masculine. You can have men, be they cis or trans, and they can be feminine. And then we have non-binary people who exist in a like infinitely diverse amount of personal expression and identity. So this idea of strict gender roles, and that's why trans people would want to pursue them, it's ridiculous. And it just shows that they've never really interacted with trans people before.
Yeah. Definitely.
Pizza, like there's a quote I've always seen: pizza rolls, not gender roles.
I like that. Like, and one thing that I feel like gets ignored a lot is we're just as capable of self-determination as everybody around us. You know, like we know who we are because we spent our entire life.
I think why we're aligned as allies, as well as because they as in the government and system, attempted to assimilate indigenous people by taking our language away and putting us in residential schools and trying to force us as people how to act or how to dress or how to react or how to even be or how to live. So that's the parity I see. I see that, governments and laws and societies and political groups are out there trying to push their feelings and how they feel about the body and telling us what to do with our bodies.
Yeah.
And I have an issue with that. I have a big issue with that. And that's why I'm aligned with anybody that's dealt with human suffering, oppression, being treated, unfairly. Man, it just gets my blood boiling. That's why I stopped talking after a while, because it just upsets me that we all suffer from this in society in Turtle Island. And I know we can do better for everybody. We can do a lot better than this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of a centuries old pattern of trying to shove people into boxes, no matter how many times it's proven that people don't fit into boxes like that. People are all different all over the world. People are just people. And trying to narrow it down more than that, it just doesn't work.
And it also makes me sick that there are people that claim to be in a religious faith are pushing their ideas onto people. And in the Catholic faith, we call them heretics, and that's exactly who they are. Nobody in any faith would go out onto a street and hold signs and say God this, God that, and it's misreading of the Bible. I've never heard of it until like recently. It just makes me sick. They're called heretics, and I would never align myself with any of them. I hope that they get what's coming to them.
Yeah. Myself, I was raised Catholic and Methodist, and whenever I come across that first thing out of my mouth, I quote, I believe it's Matthew 17:1-3. Judge not, lest ye be judged yourself, or lest ye be judged thyself, as thy judge, as thy judge others within the kingdom of heaven.
I think it shows some serious some serious I don't know, there's some serious problem if you really are so concerned about how somebody else dresses or what somebody chooses to be. And like it just shows this insecurity, I feel like, and that a lot of people on the far right, they don't, I mean, it's just sad. It's just really sad.
I think a lot of these people that have so much hate, like, seriously, I honestly, and this is just my perspective, I think they're deeply in the closet somewhere hiding. Like Lindsey Graham, of all people, and all these others who are vehemently attacking the trans community, drag queens, women's rights. Like, a lot of these people have got to be in the closet somewhere. And that's just what I think.
That brings up another really good point. This whole thing with like celebrities making private chat rooms for potentially transgender kids to chat with them privately. There's been a lot of controversy around that, and like in our group chat, you guys all know why I think that's important. But why do you guys think that's important?
Sorry, I only got part of that. You cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't quite hear you. What was that?
Oh, we got somebody's down.
Oh, now I can hear you.
Who was talking a moment ago?
I was talking a minute ago.
I think Zoom might cut out. Okay.
There's been a whole thing with celebrities making private chat rooms for kids that are potentially transgender to speak with them privately. And like in our group chat,
Want a piece of
we
toast?
talked about that too. And like, you guys all know why I think that's important, but why do you guys think that's important for trans kids?
Oh yeah, definitely. So those who aren't in supportive environments have a place, a safe place where they can express themselves. That'd have been something that'd been amazing to have when I was young, or when I was younger. I guess I'm not old.
So I'm not really familiar with this. Like, what is exactly happening? You said celebrities are making like chat groups for trans youth?
Yeah, they'll make a private chat room so that these trans youth can chat with them one-on-one. A trans celebrity, Dylan, for example, has done this, and it's received a ton of controversy. There's a lot of parents that are like, "Oh my God, if I find out that my kid is talking to a stranger without my knowledge and permission, like I'm gonna lose it." And like, but that's exactly the thing. It's like, if you don't know about it, it's because the kid doesn't feel safe talking to you about it.
Exactly. And with children, having one person that is supportive in their life, that's just so helpful for them. It shows greater outcomes overall. Like, that studies show that they have greater outcomes. And when they have just that one supportive person. So I think that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Having that with somebody that young, like in their teenage years, having that one person in their life that is accepting, kind, loving, can have a greater impact on their life. And yet you've got people that are wanting to take that away from them, so they don't have the love or the support that is important not only to them but also their development into adulthood. And that's going to be one thing that's going to be major that they all need in their life. That's the one thing they really and seriously need is love. They need kindness. They need acceptance, because without that, that increases the likelihood that another person who is trans youth may commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And if
This
you're
world does
wanting
not
to
need more dead kids.
Yeah, we don't want any more children committing suicide because they don't have the love, they don't have the acceptance or anything in their life. And if we can prevent one child in our communities from committing suicide because of a lack of a support system, then we have done something. And we want to add to saving many more of these children's lives. And with all these bills that are being churned out in multiple states, what these politicians that are supportive of this don't realize, if a trans youth commits suicide tonight, right after that bill was passed, then they will have the blood of that trans youth on their hands. That is their responsibility, and they are going to be directly responsible for killing their own constituents.
Absolutely, yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure a lot of them don't care or would not mind if trans people died off in that way.
This is how the political leaders feel. They appease their flocks of orcs, and they do whatever they want them to do.
There's some good points.
I don't mean to be
This is great.
the devil's advocate, but that's what they do. They don't care about anybody that doesn't vote for them. All they care about are what the people vote for them want. So in text, this is how people are talking. This is how they feel about inclusion. They would rather have exclusion. This is how they feel about indigenous people. I've never heard Republicans or conservatives do land recognition. I'm telling you right now, it's very sad. And how they feel also makes me sad, because I grew up thinking that Turtle Island was a utopia and everybody's accepted. Inclusion is everywhere, and political separation and ideology is going to cause harm and tyranny and suffering, which our comrade just said earlier, our ally said, these people will have blood on their hands, and they will also have civil rights issues. Because if you're going to create laws that violate human beings and their civil rights, they're going to have to deal with the blunt of that as well, and the force of law. And I really don't want anybody to suffer either. But if people suffer, I will demand justice for the victims of these horrific laws that are passed in Tennessee and other places like that. It's sickening to even read it on the news that they would pay for that promotion, so people can see it too. So the media likes to fan this stuff off too.
That's bringing up like the fact that a lot of people don't have mentors, and how important it is to have a mentor, and the fact that the suicide rate among trans people is so high. That brings up another subject I wanted to talk to you guys about. So I just want to like read off this fact that I found. So the suicide attempt rate among transgender persons ranges from 32 to 50% across the countries. Gender-based victimization, discrimination, bullying, violence, being rejected by the family, friends, and community, harassment by an intimate partner, family members, police, and public discrimination and ill treatment at healthcare systems are the major risk factors that influence the suicidal behavior among transgender people. So as I don't know if anybody in here has dealt with like depression from being bullied or harassed by family or being targeted or anything like that. And if you want to speak on that.
I've been targeted. Last year, I was sexually assaulted and beaten up at LGBT safe place last spring. And I had to fight the court system just to take me seriously and do their due diligence. But the guy is walking just on assault. All the other charges were dropped and on a diversion agreement. So he gets to walk away while I have spent the past year in isolation and fear of going outside that has actually resulted into suicide attempts. So those statistics are unfortunately painfully true.
Thank you for speaking up. Go ahead.
You were speaking in the group chat earlier too about the homeless rate in the LGBT community too, right?
Yeah, there's that's a whole nother set of statistics. That's terrible. Like how much worse it is for the trans community. But yeah, go ahead.
I was asking, I don't remember what the numbers were.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So this is from one article, and this is for like the LGBTQ youth. I couldn't find something that was trans specific, but for the LGBTQ youth, are more than twice as likely to experience homelessness as their non-LGBTQIA plus peers. And while they only make up 7% of the total U.S. youth population, they comprise an astounding 40% of all young people experiencing homelessness in this country, according to one estimate. So it's just astronomical numbers there.
Yeah, it's really bad. And as for the trans community, I don't know any specific statistics either off the top of my head. I could probably look one out and find. But like almost all of the trans people that I know, myself included, are struggling with homelessness or close to homelessness. Thankfully, I have a way out coming up soon. But like I hear it constantly, just trans people that are losing their disability, can't pay for their place to live in. They're living out of cars or living on the streets, and they can't find help. It's just not there.
So in the chat, I'm going to put a resource in there. It's translifeline.org, and it connects trans people to peer community, and it's kind of divested from like that police system and that carceral system. So if anybody wants to copy that, use it for later, anytime y'all like need it. I know there's I don't know where everybody's at, but there's a Canada one as well. So.
Oh yeah, let's get that information. That would be helpful.
What I would like to see done in terms of trans homelessness, and this goes back to the New Deal and what Franklin Delano Roosevelt wanted. If we made housing guaranteed as a human right, then we can solve the homeless issue. Like we could solve the housing crisis for the trans community. Instead of them living out on the streets, in cars, couch surfing and all that,
look at the housing statistics and look how many like rich people own multiple homes and how many of these homes are empty, like, and how many people can stay in these giant multi-million-dollar homes, and that's capitalism for you right there, like at the downfall of capitalism, like all these people, every homeless person in the United States could have a place to live if just one person, like one rich person decided to give their extra summer home to a homeless person, and it's disgusting.
And they have bailout options and insurance for all these banks, and they have access to changing laws and making new programs for people that live below the poverty line, including our trans community. Nobody below the poverty line should ever be homeless. We could make a housing program like our ally just said earlier, where everybody who's born in America or in Canada gets a house when they're 19. And if things don't work out, so be it. But at least you have a roof over your head, is what some of those guys say. But the housing issue is just as bad up here. And the building code, I don't even want to bring that up. There's like dilapidated houses on the reserves and off reserves. So for another episode.
Yeah. Someone would have to double check me on this. But I believe I remember reading somewhere that like Elon Musk alone could end homelessness for the entire world and still be a trillionaire.
I had thought I saw that too.
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. Musk and Bezos, both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just no reason for it.
The money these guys owe in taxes, they could donate it towards a huge housing program. It's all these celebrities, they have tons of money, but do they do they feel like they have to take on this problem with their charity donations? That's the big question.
So not just in the U.S., but worldwide, the amount needed to end homelessness would be $30 billion, and Bezos he's over 100 billion, and Elon Musk is over 100 billion. They could both end world hunger many times over, not just in the United States. So yeah.
Yeah, what I would like to do if I did ever win the lottery is I would build like a safe community, like a tiny house type community, which would be really cool to have, like of course not in a non-LGBTQ friendly state, like maybe a state like Colorado, like up in the mountains where it's beautiful and all that. But my solution to all this as well, and this is what I was talking about a while back with some friends on how to fight back the oppression that the trans and the LGBTQ community as a whole is, in particular right now, especially with how trans youth are being targeted, is we need trans men and women along with trans allies stepping up and running for office, whether it be local office like city council, county commission, school board, mayor, running for state legislature like your state senate, your state house, governor, and even federal level, because we seriously right here, right now, because right here, right now, we need federal LGBTQ plus protections that we don't have. We need to codify all of this stuff into federal law.
Yeah, I like that you specified. Yeah, I like that you specified trans allies because we need more trans allies. Trans people should not be on the front lines of this fight. It's not safe for us.
No, it's not. It's far from safe, and that's why we need trans allies stepping up to the plate, running for public office to issue safeguards for the trans community as a whole. Most importantly, our trans youth, who are more under attack than trans adults. Not to say that trans adults are not under attack, but the trans youth are the most vulnerable within the trans community. And we need to do everything we can to protect the trans youth and trans adults, whether it be run for office, mutual aid, ballot initiatives, because there are states that do have ballot initiatives. And that's one thing we need to also look into is a statewide ballot initiatives in states that do offer ballot initiatives to issue the strict LGBTQ plus protections and all that.
Another thing I just thought of that I wanted to bring up, and this is kind of out of left field, but as allies, do you guys believe that like when we're speaking to people who are uneducated and like sharing like hateful views towards the LGBT community, do we owe them kindness when we're telling them that these views are wrong?
I don't think we owe them time, and sometimes it's not helpful to go after them. But I try to shut down that stuff when I encounter it, even if it's just like, I don't know, social media comment sections and stuff like that. But when I encounter it in person, I feel like I've had better results, I guess, because I'm there in front of them now. They have to see a face behind the words, and they have to understand that, this is a real person that they're going after. So
I know from my point of view, at least, the way that I personally see it is when a trans person comes across, they're not necessarily meaning to be hateful, but the things they're saying are like microaggressions is a popular term. Like the thing that I feel like they oftentimes don't realize is even though to them this is their first interaction with that trans person, this is that trans person's 15th interaction with that day with someone using the same kind of language towards them, sharing the same misinformation, and it really wears on someone, and eventually, yeah, you snap.
the way I've described that kind of thing is pinpricks. If someone were to accidentally jab you with a pin and prick your skin, the first time it's not going to be a big deal, but if every other person does that to you, it's going to add up, and it could cause you to take a harsher stance on the next person to jab you like that. And then to them that they just see, oh, well, it's just this little thing. Why do you care? And it's like, because it's to you, it's that one moment, but to us, it's been potentially years, our whole life. And and I try not to like say, I don't know, if someone were to misgender me in public, I'm not gonna, lash out and treat them like there's some hateful individual over it. But depending on if it's someone I think I'm gonna see again, I may go out of my way to correct them, like, hey, no, sorry, I'm not an effeminate gay man, I'm a woman, or something like that. But and I've had both positive and negative reactions when I've done such a thing.
Right. And of course, that's not to say that it's okay to just lash out at people. It's not. But it's also important to realize that there's a reason that it's happening. You know what I mean?
I lost you there for a second.
I said that like I don't want people to think that like that's an excuse for like lashing out at people or anything like that. It's not. There's not an excuse for lashing out at people, but there is a reason for it.
Right.
I think it's a bigger thing. I think it's just ignorance and, you know, lack of awareness. And some of these people are just plain up jerks. They don't have happiness in their lives. They need to go on and explore the world and get educated and enjoy themselves instead of trying to control what other people want to wear and what kind of, you know, stuff they want to, you know, whether they want to wear makeup or not. Like, it's a culture of control, and they're going to get called out, every single one of them, trying to push their ideologies and their rhetoric onto other people. And like, for instance, like I said, the incident that happened at the dollar store here was just, you know, not so much embarrassing for everybody. It was embarrassing for these two Karens that were acting like that. And I commend the worker for, you know, just wrapping it up. Are you done? Like, and get on with your life. And like I said in other shows, like, let's see how far that kind of attitude is, you know, is accepted in the workplace, for instance. Let's see if these kind of people can interact with others in society and play nice. Like, I think not. I mean, these ignorant people that I don't even want to bring light to, it just, I don't understand. I don't get it, because I grew up on a different farm and a different fruit tree, and these people are around my age and older, and I don't see where they just, their ideologies just went rot. I can't explain it. Like, where's the love? Where did the love go? Why is freedom of speech being intertwined with hate speech? And now it's like free to speak means free to be a douchebag to people that are different. Like, I don't mean to call out these parents. You know, these parents all should accept their children regardless of what they want to identify as. It's not their job to control what their children are going to do and how they're going to live their lives. Like, I call every single parent out that has done that you know, that has forced a child to go and talk to it in a chat room, where they should be able to go to the very refuge that created them, which was their parents. And it just makes me sick that society, and we're talking about this. It's disgusting. Our parents, our families need to do more. We need to be better.
I definitely see like hope though in younger generations. So my daughter is a teenager, she's queer, and from her friend group, I definitely see more like just acceptance, like all around acceptance. And but this is our youth, this is our teenagers, you know. And when she came out, like, it wasn't like really like the traditional like coming out. It was just normal, you know. She was just like, oh, I also like, I like girls too, you know. like I have a crush on this girl. And it wasn't something that was like needed to come out, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to anyone else, or resonate with anyone else?
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Younger?
Like I'm 32 and I've got a niece that's 25, and she knew I was left leaning in my political and social views, and she come out to me as bisexual, and she was scared to talk to somebody in the family at first. This is like when she was like 17, 18. And she told me that she'd had those feelings for quite some time. And I said, that's quite normal to have that sort of feeling. And I told her, I said, don't think that it's not normal for you to have these sort of feelings, because it is normal. That's part of human nature. It's part of who you are and who you're developing into becoming. Like, she was scared to come out to somebody in the family, especially somebody on her dad's side, which I can understand. Yeah, because I do come from a conservative Christian background. And she just needed that love, that kindness, that acceptance, and all that, which all kids need: kindness, love, and acceptance from somebody within their own family. Because if you don't have that family support, then you're doomed. Like, if you have absolutely no.
I was just saying, I'm really glad that you were there for her. You know, that she had.
Yeah, I support her 100%.
Small victories.
Like,
Yeah. I was gonna say that, like myself personally, regarding the shift in like public opinion, I came out as part of the LGBT community in 2010, and in that time, I watched the community change and society change and be more open and accepting. Because when I first came out, I was growing up in a small conservative town up in Minnesota, and I received a ton of it all the time. It was really difficult, and over the years, it just kind of it petered off. You know, people just stopped caring. They started just seeing me as me and treating me like a person, and it's. I think you're definitely right. There is hope in the future and in the younger generation and in our generation even.
I'm proud of our youth to see things in a better light. I'm proud of them to not think the way some of our soon to be ancestors think. No offense, I don't mean to say this. I'm 46, but I seem to find more and more of these Christo-fascist nationalist, people pushing their ideas onto others around my age and a little bit older. So it is going to be the youth that is going to take leadership and going to take the bull by the horns, so to speak, and carry on with the ideologies that work, so everybody's included. And that's one of my missions, is to advocate to include. And we don't have, maybe the issue is bad up in Canada. It's sort of a conservative country up here, but the conservatives speak a little differently up here. They claim to say, well, I'll love you, whatever you want to be, wherever you're going to, whatever you're going to do. Right. And some people are coming out with their identities, and right away we find out who's what up here, who are the ones that believe in equality and acceptance and love for everybody, and who sort of doesn't. Right. And it is tough. Like, our identity as Indigenous people has been taken away. And I just can't believe that this is happening all over again, that people are labored to have their own right to identify themselves. Like, it shouldn't be that way. It should be free and easy, and everybody should accept everybody else as human beings. Like, I don't understand where this boomer culture invented this. I don't want to blame it on the boomers, but it seems to be around that area. I don't know if anybody wants to correct me on that. It seems to be
you're not wrong.
A little bit older than me,
because a large majority of that generation in particular they're scared. Right, it's all fear driven by them, because they see that they have lost the debate socially, so they're trying to inflict harmful laws onto others, especially future generations that do not support that. And what they do not come to terms to realize, they are not the majority. They really are not. The majority really lies within the younger generations, like the millennial generation, Gen Z. A good portion of Gen X is also leans left. So they're wanting to push their hard agendas on people when they're just walking out of the door in their political careers. So they're wanting to push this Christo-fascist ideology down everybody's throat. And I heard one person, I don't remember who, I think it was Ted Cruz or one of them, that said that they want what's happening in the states to go federal, like nationally. And that terrifies me. And we do need to be taking in account in each and every election, do we want more of this, or do we want to fight back and elect people that are young, much younger, like between the ages of 30 and 40, that actually are reflective of the future and thinking of the future generations, of especially our trans youth in particular? Like, do you want somebody that's going to harm you, or do you want somebody that's going to love and protect you being in office? And that's the thing that we all need to be asking ourselves. And like, how are we going to protect the LGBTQ community if we continue allowing these people to have political power over us?
You bring up a really good point. There's this really big like ideology in the older generation that I had to deal with so and so growing up, and like we need to bring that back. These kids don't know what it's like. Our responsibility as adults is to make sure that the children that come after us don't have to go through the things that we suffer. Like, and that's universal.
Bingo. That's one of my missions on Dave Moon TV, is to preach equality, inclusion, get rid of this disclusion ideology that's been spread across Turtle Island. And I always like to say we're going to renovate the master's house. The master's house is Turtle Island. And we're basically, no offense, for all the tools that are going to renovate that house to suit our needs as people that live here today. And yes, I agree with getting younger people with fresher new minds, not, no offense again, soaked into the Cheetos and Kool-Aid ideologies, you know what I mean? Some fresh faces with some fresh ideas, and we'll move the world in a progressive way, rather than this, let's line my pockets kind of idea and do what the lobbyists say.
Yeah, we need people who haven't sipped the Kool-Aid yet.
Like I hear like over the last few months, I've actually had thoughts of possibly running for office, probably on the state legislative level, because if you think about it, the state level, like especially right now, we could fight back a lot more than you think when you focus more on your state legislature to push back on all of these horrible agendas, like the healthcare bans, along with banning women's reproductive rights. Like we're having, and we also need to think, we also need to be thinking, first they come for the women's reproductive rights. Now they're coming for LGBTQ rights. We need to also step forward in our platforms if we're going to have people run for office, also be thinking about women's reproductive rights as well as LGBTQ protections as well. So we're going to have to knock out two birds with one stone and preserve the rights of all people. Like I knew right when Roe v. Wade was overturned that the next community on the chopping block would be the LGBTQ community. Like I had a really strong feeling that that was what they were coming for next. And what these people that support this don't realize, their rights will soon be on the chopping block next. And that's what they don't realize. Once they come for one group's rights, their rights are next.
That's exactly was my thought too. When all of that was going down, I'm like, okay, this is next. This is the future. This is what's happening, and it just keeps going backwards. But yeah, that definitely had that thought too, Gregory.
We're already seeing it in Tennessee a little bit, where Republicans in Tennessee are pushing for county clerks to have the right to use religious reasons to deny marriage certificates to interfaith couples, LGBT couples, interracial couples, just whoever they deem unfit for marriage in their eyes according to their religious beliefs.
Speaking of the restriction of rights, that actually brings up a really good topic. Gun rights. The trans community, for a lot of people in the trans community, a gun is their only safety. And a very large portion of the LGBT community is like has disabilities, has mental illnesses, so on and so forth. And with recent events and there being a transgender person at the center of a mass shooting, there's been a really big push again for gun control. And I think it's important to bring up how detrimental that would be to the trans.
Yeah, I'm a gun owner. It's something that I've worried about. I'm in East Tennessee, so I do wonder if it's only a matter of time before I'm either attacked or even falsely arrested due to being trans, due to my appearance, whatever. So that's something to consider. And I've also seen even pro-gun people are saying that specifically that trans people shouldn't have access to guns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
they're saying what?
Trans people shouldn't have guns is what they're saying.
That's so ridiculous. Wow.
And like I do want to point out that like I'm speaking as someone who for most of their life has been very strongly pro gun control. And it's being part of the trans community that has opened my eyes to just how necessary gun actually.
I was talking a while back about this with a friend of mine, and we were having a discussion on this, and she's from Arkansas. And she brought up a good point about the whole gun control debate and where it correlates also with the the extremely militarized police forces, like right now. And I actually started changing my tune then.
gun control is a form of class warfare. Like, why should we give up our firearms if the police are not going to be forced to give up theirs? Especially in a time where police brutality is continuing to rise. We saw that with George Floyd. We saw that with Derek, Breonna Taylor, and many others. Like, there's so many names that I could say that have been targets of police brutality, but we have to look at it like, why should we give up ours if we have extremely militarized police units across this country? Like, look what's going, like, I'm from South Georgia. Look what's going on up in Atlanta, Georgia with Cop City.
Oh, man. Yeah. That's a whole nother discussion, too. Go ahead.
It's interesting. In my state, I was previously in an abusive relationship that lasted for a couple of years, and he went to jail for assault. I don't remember the exact charges, but he used to throw knives at me, and he's now allowed to have a gun. He doesn't, but in my state, he is currently allowed to own a firearm. And that just kind of puts things in perspective for me, as far as I don't think that the current, what they're trying to do for gun bans is going to work. But I do think that we need to put something in place for people to get guns, because domestic abusers are getting guns. They're able to go and, harm or even kill the people that they are in relationships with. And so I do think that there needs to be like a mental health screening or something along those lines. But I don't think that we should be focused on making this, into, oh, well, trans people shouldn't have guns or whatever the other.
And that's why I brought up that a lot of people in the trans community have mental illness, is because that mental health screening would take guns out of the hands of the trans community as well. However, I do think that a better alternative would be a stronger focus on mental health services and prevention.
Medicare for all.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
What we need is a Medicare for all system in place that addresses the mental health concerns and covers mental health very well, and puts the proper funding into mental health screenings once a year or once a month.
Yeah, prevent domestic abuse before it happens.
Yeah, they should have mental health stuff in schools.
And bring back more mental hospitals. They took a lot of those out too, and that would be super helpful. More mental hospitals.
Yeah, thanks to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
But and I don't think I don't think that everybody with a mental health or with a mental illness should not have access or anything. I just say if they have violent tendencies, I don't think that people with severely violent tendencies should be able to have guns. And a lot of the people that have done mass shootings have mentioned very violent things, and they were going to do violent things. And I just think that if we're seeing this and we know that these people are violent, why are we not doing anything about it? I guess that's kind of my thought process.
Yeah, the shooter. Oh, go ahead.
I agree with you, and that's kind of like why I think that the mental health system approach is great, is because if we improved like the social services and the mental health system and all of that, those people showing those violent tendencies, they would be caught before they could ever even think about acting on those tendencies, let alone going to get them.
Yep, I
You know what I
completely
mean?
agree with that. I think that we should, I've been trying to advocate for, I don't know, probably about 10 years that we should have like mental health, like learn about mental health in school. And then additionally, we should have mental health providers in the school so that children can get access to mental health, regardless of financial situation.
Not just in
Make
the school,
it
but
free at the
actively
point of
interacting with
service.
kids. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Make the mental health services free at the point of service.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
If you need to see a psychologist, you should get to see them without it costing an arm and a leg like it does today. That's why a lot of people refuse to go and get mental health services, because of the exorbitant cost that it costs people.
Yeah, definitely for people who are like not insured, for sure. I don't know where everyone's at, but I know like in my state, there is mental health services in the schools, and there's crisis counselors and there's counselors, and there's also like programs that, you know, youth can get free services. And there are like community support groups and peer groups and things like that, where it is, you know, you don't have to pay. So I'm wondering like more of that, and not always just mental health, but also like peer groups and community care. Because here's the thing, there's with mental health, there have to be careful too, because not every mental health provider is created equally. And some press their own agenda, and sometimes it is more harm than good. So vetting out, you know, trans affirming care and finding that specific therapist that is going to work for that person, because not all therapists are doing good. So just caveat.
I completely agree with that. I've had some, especially when I was young, I had a lot of mental health problems, and I struggled to find good therapists, and it's rough. When I was living in South Carolina, and one of the therapists tried to push their Christian values on me, and knowing that I was atheist, and it was not okay with me.
And yeah, that's what I mean by sometimes they're doing more harm than good. And so we date our trans therapists, our LGBTQ plus, our advocates, kind of like, you know, I want to make sure that whatever therapist I have is also advocating for me, you know, and my different intersectionalities as well.
I do know, being a graduate student in
you could talk to this person if you were having trouble, and a lot of kids even realize that the things they're experiencing aren't normal, that they're not going to realize that they need to ask. And I think that it's important for these mental health professionals to actually like meet with kids individually, one-on-one, just as a regular day-to-day thing, to spot those kids that need help and don't know, and be able to catch problems long before they become problematic.
And that would mean more providers, and that's hard, especially if we have tests that are inherently racist, like to get licensed in the first place. You know, so we definitely need to push more of our providers and support the people of color, our trans people, our queer people, to be licensed, you know, to get them out there, because those are people that are going to do the most good and, you know, add to quality of life. So just my
absolutely
thoughts.
Yeah, I know that there are so many people that just don't have mental health care. Like last time I checked, there were only 90 psychologists in the entire state of Iowa. That it is severely, like, there's so many people that we need, you know, tons and tons and tons of mental health care workers and of all kinds.
That's insane. And That's insane. In certain states, though, it's like they won't even take insurance. They'll only like take cash, so they don't. So these like psychologists or psychiatrists don't have to deal with the insurance companies too. And it's like I was $750 for like a half an hour session. It's just it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, they don't.
I
They
do know. I do know some psychologists that do support Medicare for all, and that would be a system for us to move toward because it would help the financial burden and all that.
I think most of the people that I go to school with are, and most of the people that I've gone to school with in the past as well are for Medicare for all or some type of universal health care.
And there's a lot of controversy around the idea of Medicare for all. It's like, how are we going to pay for this? I want to point out that a huge amount of like our crime rate in the country stems from untreated mental illness. And so where would the funds come from? Directly out of the taxes that are already being paid for those people to be incarcerated.
The issue with healthcare is we have universal healthcare up here in Canada. I mean, we're a tenth of the population of the United States, but the kicker with these conservatives is the taxes, and that's the byproduct of it. A lot of countries that have universal healthcare have killer like taxes. So if you want universal healthcare, folks, the taxes are going to have to be raised, and I know how people don't want to have to pay more taxes.
I really personally,
I watched a video a while back about that, and it was from an economist, Warren Mosler. I'll have to share it in the Facebook chat, and he actually said universal health care would require a middle class tax cut because it would be much cheaper. And just like the Canadian monetary system, the US system works in the exact same way with the macroeconomic operational reality of taxes not funding federal spending, because you have to think the federal government, just like the government of Canada, is a currency issuing government. So no new taxes would be required in that aspect because the way money works, Congress, just like the Canadian Parliament, just like the Parliament in the UK, they hold the purse strings to how much spending can get allocated. Once a spending bill gets through Congress and it's signed by the president, then the funds get spent into existence and all that. So a really good book to read on that would be The Deficit Myth by Stephanie Kelton, which is a book that I highly recommend everyone check out, so that way you can learn how these services like we're discussing can easily be funded. Like everybody always asks when it comes to social spending, like healthcare, education, housing, and so forth, like they always ask, how are you going to pay for it? But when it comes to the military industrial complex, bailing out the big banks, the top 1%, nobody ever asks that. Well, we'll pay for it the same way we bail out the top 1% and increase military spending.
Well, and I was going to point out that I believe the statistic is that it's something to the effect of like 1/10 of the U.S. population is incarcerated. And if we can improve mental health services to bring that number down by quite a lot, that's a huge amount of taxpayer money that's not being spent.
Yeah,
Well, if you can pull that off without,
with universal health care is that currently the average person spends, I think it was like $1,200 per person per month on healthcare. So, I mean, even if they did somehow raise the taxes a little bit, we're already paying like, 25% in taxes or more. And then you have on top of that an additional like $1,200 approximately that you're paying for healthcare. And so people don't realize that it's costing so much money, and they don't look at that. They just look at, oh, where's this money going to come from? Because we have to come up with an additional money, but they're already putting that money in. And for most people, it would lower the cost if we had universal health care. Plus,
Yeah,
you
it
also
lower the
are getting
cost.
rid of all of these people that are doing different types of insurance stuff. I mean, you have huge groups of people that are doing different insurance data entry and all of this other stuff, and a lot of those people don't need to have that job. They can get a different job instead of using that job.
That's where the federal job guarantee would come in, because it would transition those people in those areas into the public sector, and they would not be out of a job at all.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, the solution to before Medicare for All could be implemented, to ensure that people are still in a job, they don't lose their jobs at all, is to implement a federal job guarantee, which would transition them over from the private sector into the public sector.
Yeah, and we could like incentivize people for like doing certain kind of jobs that we need more people for, like mental health was an example from earlier.
Yeah, mental health is one area that we need to invest a lot more time, money, and resources into. And it would also, it would also help so many people in the trans community. It's unreal.
Yeah, and I also wanted to point out that like initiatives like that would also help with a lot of people's financial issues, which is another gigantic contributor to the crime rate in the U.S. So that's less people in the prisons taking up taxpayer
money. Excuse me, didn't mean to burp.
And keep in mind, we do have universal health care up here, but my wife just pointed out, like, it's a limited sort of a coverage on there. Like a lot of the stuff that we get prescribed isn't covered by the healthcare system I use, which it happens to be Pacific Blue Cross, but I don't know if that helps out, but a lot of the stuff is covered and some of it isn't. So keep in mind, universal health care can work. And if you could pull it off without raising any taxes, that would be sweet too. Might I add, that would be great. Oh yeah, and add mental health into that as well, like an extra kick of that, because that's part of the health services would be mental health naturally.
Speaking of free healthcare, getting back on the trans topic, something really shocking that I found out about the other day when I was looking at trans healthcare, because I'm trying to get on hormone replacement therapy. But I don't have any sort of income right now. I live in a very small town.
I have a very good resource for you. I'm gonna share it with you.
I would love that.
I'm going to share it over in the Facebook chat so that way everybody who is in the U.S. can get access to that resource. It's a list of employers that you can work for that do offer gender affirming care under their current health insurance plans.
That is
and there is a resource for that. I'm going to have to pull it up and put it in the Facebook chat. That way it does not get lost in the Zoom chat.
But what shocked me to find out was Texas actually has resources for free gender affirming of all of the states to offer. And as far as I was able to find, it's the only state that offers it.
It's actually going to be a couple of links that I will share over in the Facebook chat, so they are not lost in the Zoom chat. And it's from the Human Rights campaign. Hold up.
But I don't know. I wanted to get people's thoughts on that. Because I know that personally that shocked me to find out that Texas.
Yeah, there's a list of, and you can also go to healthcare.gov and also apply for trans healthcare as well. Yeah, there's like resources and all that. And there's like a whole list of close on right here. Like there's like a whole list. Like I'm gonna have to go back and hunt it. Like I don't remember where I put it at, but it's somewhere. Like there's like a whole list of them that offer. I know Marriott hotels, Hyatt hotels, Hilton, and quite a few others. Like there's like a bunch of Fortune 500 companies that do offer those services as well.
Scrolling through like Facebook, you'll see a lot of like GoFundMe's and like Facebook fundraisers for people who are trying to raise money for HRT, and so it seems like a lot of people are struggling to find resources for that, just from what I see on social media at least.
Hang on. Yeah, like we do need to put together like a toolkit for trans men and women looking for an employer that will cover it under their health insurance plans. That's what I'm doing.
Time to make an app, Soup. Let's get on it.
Yes, Soup. Let's get to
it. Right. So I have another question. Another topic that I wanted to bring up. As far as, well, if you want to come back to that when you find some more resources. As far as people using pronouns, as a trans person, do you find it hard for people to use the right pronouns, and like after you correct them, do they use proper pronouns after that, or do they continue to not use the right pronouns? What are your thoughts on that?
For me personally, I've noticed that a lot of it has to do with that person's perception of me. Because like as they get to know me better, and like as this person starts to see like, okay, this person's a girl. As soon as that clicks in their head, they don't struggle with my pronouns. But so long as they're still viewing me as male, so long as they're still seeing someone with a beard and a mask face, they do struggle, and I do have to correct them. But once they start to see the person behind that face, that's when it starts to click.
That's good. That's good that people are able to like fix that problem, like fix that and correct themselves, and like actually make an effort to use the proper pronouns. Well, that's good. That's really good to hear.
Well,
I've also
like for trans men and women, like from what I've been told by several, that's it. In some scenarios, it does take time for people to adjust to the new pronouns or to the pronouns that they identify as, like her, she, her, they, them, and so forth. It does take time for them to adjust to it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or hide that fact, which it's true. It does take a lot of people some time to adjust, to get used to it. But yeah, it's just one of those situations that requires a lot of time to get adjusted to. Like it's something that somebody like there's a lot of people that will still call you your dead pronouns for a little while or a while.
Mm-hmm.
But it just takes time.
Yeah, I've noticed that the people who struggle for like a really extended period of time, I've noticed that they also they treat me as a man. And they don't even realize that they're doing it. That's why I say a lot of it is their perception. That's not something that's necessarily something that people are conscious about, but it's something that is.
Yeah, and I think some people won't ever fully adjust. I still have coworkers that, being out for over 4 years, I still get misgendered from time to time by the same people. And a lot of these people have known me post transition longer than pre-transition, and there's actually a few people that never knew me pre-transition, and they still misgender me. So, of course, maybe that's because of the area I'm in.
How does it make you feel when that happens? It's probably, I'm sure it's frustrating for you. Like
it is frustrating, and also and depending on who it is, it shows me that they don't really respect me or care about me. So it's like I have a couple of coworkers who have, and what's really sad is one of them actually has a trans sister, but she's been misgendering me the entire time, and she's only gotten a little bit better about it, to where she tries not to misgender me to my face, but she still does it if she thinks I can't hear her. So, and that's aggravating. And I just went ahead and on several times I've told her, every time you do that, I like you a little less.
Yeah, that makes sense though.
Yeah. And like another reason that I say it has to do with perception. A great example is my sister-in-law. She has always seen me as a woman. She'll show me dresses that she thinks are pretty. We do each other's hair, things like that, and she's never once struggled with my pronouns. Whereas people that initially viewed me even if I introduced myself with she her pronouns right off the bat, they still struggled with it.
I can relate to that because I meet new people and right away I'll be like, okay, it's going to be easier if I'm meeting this new person just to kind of be like, oh, hi, I'm Monique. I use they, them pronouns. And then we'll go throughout the night and I'll be hanging out with them. And I still will get she, her, like throughout the night. And then sometimes I'll correct it and sometimes I just don't have the energy to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't speak from personal experience for
Go ahead.
that, but I know that I've been trying to make an effort to use gender neutral pronouns unless somebody specifically tells me otherwise. And I've noticed that people get really upset about that.
Yeah,
Like-
they definitely do.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about Neil?
What was that? I couldn't hear you.
How do you guys feel about Neil pronouns? Because that's a hotly debated subject.
I don't know how I personally would feel about that. I would have to be more educated as to what they are. So that way I don't sound ignorant, because I do want to know what they are. That way I don't misgender somebody who does go by neo pronouns and all that.
I have a few friends that use neo pronouns. I mean, I get it. I mean, really, when you get down to it, aren't our pronouns and our names really just the sounds we use to get each other's attention?
Yeah, absolutely.
What can you explain what neopronouns are? Because for people that don't know.
Neopronouns are they're pronouns that are outside the norm is the best way that I know how to put it. So like Fay Fair is one example that I've seen quite that people use. So instead of referring to someone as like with she her pronouns, you would refer to them as they. So I was talking to Fair the other day is like an example of a sentence you might use, if that helps at all.
I think there's like several of them.
I have to research that. I want to research that too.
There's a lot.
It's just at the end of the day. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You want to go ahead first?
Oh, sure. I haven't really had to use any very much. I haven't really known anybody who's used neopronouns. They do seem a little more complicated to use. But that's, yeah, I haven't really had any experience with that.
I was going to say, for me, at the end of the day, I want to respect people, right? Like, we want to respect people's humanity. And if they want to be called a certain thing, if they want to use neopronouns, for instance, then I'm going to respect them because I care about them and I respect their humanity. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
And like respect is supposed to be the baseline. Respect isn't earned, it's lost.
But I don't think like it is supposed to be the baseline, but there's so much disrespect that, you know, others are, that they clearly show.
I'm looking up right now what neopronouns is, so I don't sound like a ignorant asshole.
I mean, it's a somewhat niche subject, so.
Hold up. I'm gonna see if there's like any images online of neopronouns.
Don't get started.
Wow.
I mean, it shouldn't be that hard.
With memes. Oh, cool. The Human Rights Campaign also has a really good thing here for neopronouns and what they are and how to do, like how to use them in context. I think this is cool.
Well, it's just like Monique said. It's it's not that hard to do land recognition. It's not that hard to respect the lands of the
It's
indigenous
really
people, and it's not that hard to respectfully identify a person to their preference. Like, I don't understand why society has an issue with this, but we'll fix them. We'll be that. We'll grease the wheel. We'll be the greasy wheel and get everybody onto the new way of thinking, right? Like we mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
that youth are thinking in this mindset, and we're thousands of light years behind some people around my age and older. But like I said, we'll teach them, we'll educate them, and they can choose to be humans or orcs, quite basically.
And if you come across someone who does use neo pronouns, a lot of the time you can just ask them how to use their pronouns, and they'll tell you. And it's like they realize that it's something that's new to the vast majority of people. It's not something that is nearly as intuitive to us as like they them pronouns and she her he him, these pronouns that we grew up.
I like that. I like that, like the perspective of going in as a learner and approaching people with curiosity and without assumptions.
Yes, absolutely. That is something that's absolutely huge. Is like, just don't pretend that you know. Just ask.
Speaking of which, I have a probably stupid question, but I'm going to ask it.
Go for it.
About pronouns. So sometimes I'll see where it'll say like he, they pronouns or she, they pronouns. Does that mean that you can use either like him? I can't talk today.
That means that they use both. Yes.
Okay.
So you can refer to them as they them or he him, for example.
Okay. I was wondering.
It is considered more polite to alternate between them rather than stick to one or the other. But
that makes sense. Yeah.
So how do you guys? So how do people? We're almost at 2 hours, so we've been going for a long time. We didn't really talk a whole lot about Dylan Mulvaney. Like, how do people feel about Dylan and like the backlash from like Kid Rock and like these country singers over Anheuser-Busch, like making their own custom beer can for Dylan. I don't know if we talked about that much, but does anyone have anything they want to say about that? Or
I think that it's largely performative. There's been a picture going around of Kid Rock at his house party in 2003, sitting next to a very famous drag queen, drinking a Bud Light, of all things. Like,
I think he just wants his 15 minutes of fame and all that.
I think that a lot of it is just these people know. They know their audience and they know who their fans are, and they're trying to perform to their fans.
yeah, I definitely feel that way too. For the most part, it's been so ridiculous the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it's not that he wants his 15 minutes of fame. It's just he's extremely childish. And that also highlights another point of what we discussed earlier about mental health. Like, you get so angry and outraged over inclusiveness that you're just going to take an AR-15 out and shoot up a bunch of beer just because of what their decision is. Like, seriously?
A bunch of beer that he
So
bought,
laughable.
mind you.
So laughable.
Well,
Yeah.
Anheuser-Busch still wound up with their money, so they're the ones taking in the last laugh.
Mm-hmm. And like another thing is like there's been a whole lot of controversy around like supposed to be sexual, like a bunch of other creators have sexual content. It's downright not true.
Wait, what was that? That cut out for a second.
There's a lot of controversy around these creators releasing like sexual and provocative content aimed towards kids, and it's downright not true. And like nobody in the trans community that does want to potentially like groom kids or anything like that, they're not going to be public about it by any means, because like the people that want to harm our community, that's the narrative that they're spinning anyway. And so they're not going to allow that to come into the public eye if they can help it by any means at all. You know,
I see the irony in that, because the same people that are accusing the LGBTQ plus community, along with drag queens, of being so-called sexual predators, they see nothing wrong with taking their children and putting them into pageants for money. Like, they see nothing wrong with that. Like, they see nothing wrong with taking their children to places like Hooters and all this other stuff. Like, I saw, like, they see nothing wrong with also having like
taking your kids to church. That's kind
Yeah.
of
or taking your son to a strip club has been a regular in a lot of families for a long time.
I would much rather my child, if I do have children, I'm 32, I don't have children. If I were to have children, I would much rather them be trans than end up being a hateful bigot. I would much rather my child be part of the LGBTQ plus community. At least they're part of a community that is filled with inclusiveness, love, kindness, compassion, empathy. These people that are like doing all this nonsense, they're very apathetic, if you want to know the truth. Like, they show absolutely no remorse, no empathy for others. They don't care for others, if you want to know the truth.
I completely agree. I have 2 kids, and I have already expressed to them that, you know, they can be whatever they want to be, or whoever they are, you know, and that they can always come to me and talk to me about that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of people who don't have that luxury, and I just want to make sure that they know, you know, that they're safe with me and stuff.
Yeah, just like I discussed earlier with my niece that's 7, 8 years younger than I am. She was nervous to tell somebody in the family that she's bisexual, and she come to me and told me, and I was like, cool. She's like, so you're not going to hate me or anything? But no, I don't care. As long as you're happy and they don't hurt you, then I don't care. If they do hurt you, then I'm going to have problems with them.
That's exactly how you should answer that, honestly.
I was like, cool.
You know, it's like,
Like,
okay, just be accepting.
She was like, so you're not bothered by this? I said, no, I am actually a big advocate and supporter of the LGBTQ community. Even before I was a progressive leftist, I was a libertarian. That's where I got my start in politics from, was being a libertarian. And I still hold the libertarian viewpoint that the government should not be telling parents that their children, that they cannot, if my point of view, I got tongue tied. They should not be telling trans youth that they should not transition. They should not be forcibly detransitioning our youth, because they are going to contribute to so much blood on their hands that I hope that Gen Z of TikTok, who I am very proud of, by the way, I am very proud and happy to scroll across the political Gen Zers of TikTok, and they are more fired up, just like we are, and angry about this. Like they are literally encouraging Gen Z to register to vote to fight back against this. That's going to be crucial in coming elections. Is
And
the Gen Z?
The thing about it is, like, being trans, it is the pursuit of happiness. That's an unalienable right.
Mm-hmm. Because trans rights, in my view, are human rights.
Mm-hmm.
Human rights
Absolutely.
that should never be violated at
100%.
all. Like, trans rights should never be alienated. They should not be taken away. But in the sense of what George Carlin would say, oh, they're not rights, they're temporary privileges. You can't call them rights if they can just take them away from you. Like, but yeah, George Carlin would even be telling us to fight.
George Carlin.
So hey, there's some comments on the chat. Charles Neal. Neo-pronouns are a category of neologistic English third person personal pronouns beyond he, she, they, one, and it. Neo-pronouns are preferred by some non-binary individuals who feel that they provide options to reflect their gender identity more accurately than conventional pronouns. And should respect be legislation? Why do keep pressuring to change people's minds and feelings through legislation instead of education? We force feed people who barely can understand the internet. Really, we're talking about beer. We just had 8 mass shootings last night. Those some of the comments are just
8 mass shootings last night.
I don't know.
Yeah, in one day, one night.
Jeez.
Did you say 8?
Yeah, that's what was apparently.
Where were these mass shootings?
I know there was at least one in Alabama.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't been hearing more about this. This is the first I've heard.
It's because we've become so numb to it as a society. I feel like, well,
yeah, and it's
it doesn't make
absolutely
the headlines
terrible.
anymore. It doesn't even make headlines because it's so common. It's crazy. I haven't looked into that either. I have to look into that.
Well, we've also already talked about gun control and mental health, so we've partially addressed that without knowing the details of what had happened. I'm gonna look
This
up
is just
this.
crazy how we have so much of this going on in our country and in our society.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see what I was gonna say. Do you guys have any other burning topics you'd like to discuss tonight?
I was gonna bring up these laws that are being pushed to force out like trans youth and LGBT youth to potentially and openly unaccepting families. Because for the record, my family is accepting now, but that's a scary thing for anyone, let alone trans youth. And and it's like we said before, if they haven't gone to their families, it's because they feel there's a reason they haven't. I mean, that is, and that could put so many in dangerous positions, is like we've already talked about the homeless issues and trans youth and LGBT youth being kicked from their homes because of who they are. And it's like when we talked about mental health providers in schools, and that's a great thing that really should be happening. But then it's also like, in the event that did become commonplace, would the anti-trans crowd be using that to go after trans kids? Would the anti-gay crowd be using that to go after gay kids? And that's real scary too. Then we'd have to figure out how do we protect these people?
Like I said earlier, we're gonna have to have trans men, women, trans allies all stepping up to, well, LGBTQ plus allies as a whole, stepping up to the plate, running for public office, and coming up with laws that protect the LGBTQ plus community. And that's going to be the first line of defense right there. Not to mention, we're also going to have ballot initiatives in states go forth in states where there are ballot initiatives allowed, so that way the voters can decide what happens, and it would force their state legislatures to act upon it. And that's why I'm a huge advocate for ballot initiatives, because those could be useful as well. Like, we need these ballot initiatives going forward to pressure state legislatures to do the right thing.
So that brings up another topic: is what can allies do to support people in the trans community? I know you guys have mentioned some stuff. Is there anything else that you guys can think of that would be helpful?
We're going to have to get to doing local organizing in our own communities, and all that. Like, it's going to take a massive organizing effort to get anything done. And that's where we're going to have to go, like on TikTok and such, and make some noise to get any sort of organizing done in that area. Like, it's going to take a lot of local support to get anything done, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Right now, there's a whole bunch in Iowa, at least. I'm not sure about other states, but I know in Iowa, they've been trying to attack the LGBTQI plus communities, especially trans people. And I know that there was, I'm not sure if it got passed or not, but there was one that tried to ban trans kids in the schools from using their restroom that they would like to use. And they were saying that it has to be their biological sex instead of what they are going by. And I actually got in a really bad argument about it with my stepmom, because they were saying, well, I don't care what other people are doing, but you know, the children are going to use that and take advantage of that and try to transition themselves when they aren't actually trans, so that they can go and sneak in and look at girls going to the bathroom. And I'm like, that's ridiculous.
That is one of the most ridiculous statements that I have heard in terms of the trans bathroom policies. Yeah. I remember the very first trans restroom policy that I heard of. I think it was either in North Carolina or Indiana, one of the two states, where they tried to institute a law banning trans men and women from using the restrooms of the gender that they identify as, which is the most ridiculous of arguments that could ever be brought forth is, oh, you want to, and they try to use the whole sexual predator ploy, like saying that trans men and women are sexual predators and all that. Like, that's not the case. I know I know a lot. All the trans men and women I know are big advocates of protecting children. Like, trans men and women would not harm a child.
It's the same thing they said about. Sorry.
Like, the ones that I do know are staunch advocates of protecting children. And you've got organizations like GAG, aka the Gays Against Groomers, who are one of the biggest TERF organizations out there, who is attacking trans rights. Like, they've attacked my friend Noah Buchanan with Trans Revolutionary Action Network. And they doxed him and tried to go after his kid.
It's the same thing they used to say about gays and lesbians. It's all recycled. There's none of it's even new. So it's just over and over and over again. I was actually speaking with
nonsense.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that from. I've been out as bi for, I don't know, over 20 years, and I saw a lot of that in the bi community when I was younger too. It was the same kind of stuff.
When I was a kid, people openly said these kind of awful things about gay people. It's like, oh, the gays are going after your kids. The whole all gays are secretly pedophiles and shit, and it's awful. And of course that kept me in the closet longer.
It's nothing more than fear tactics and fear mongering used by bigots to keep, it's to suppress the LGBTQ community even more and to shut them out and put them back in the closet. Like, they say, oh, you go back in the closet, and it's like the whole Alex Jones debate, like, oh, they're turning the frogs gay, yeah, that sort of nonsense.
I would totally turn a frog gay if I could, just saying.
Wouldn't that be fun? Don't they know that even in the animal kingdom,
Kid Rock would be so upset.
in the animal kingdom, same-sex stuff even happens there. It's a part of nature.
Yeah. Yep. And it's been, there's been, LGBT, well, they wasn't called that, but it's, there's been like same-sex stuff and, all kinds of stuff throughout all of history. It's been pretty consistent. There's some ups and downs during certain periods of time, but for the most part, it's been pretty consistently around like 10% of the population. So
and what they don't realize is, look at our founding fathers, of this country. They used makeup.
Yep, and they had wigs, and they had.
That's so true.
Even Ronald Reagan himself, before he was president, participated in drag.
You said Ronald Reagan? You said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw a meme like that, like floating around on Facebook, and it's like, oh, here's the hypocrisy is real among conservatives here. That's your idol.
And what they also don't realize is Rudy Giuliani, who was one of the people behind the Big Lie, also did drag.
Yeah.
And he was even seen with Donald Trump in drag.
There's a lot of conservatives that have worn drag, and like, it's so ridiculous.
Like, there's like, even Donald Trump himself, before he was even president, funded drag queens and stuff. Like, he funded like drag shows.
Yeah, there's definitely some irony and hypocrisy there. I can see that. Yeah. I mean, you can't hate something if you're gonna be something, you know? Like that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, like they don't see the fact that Trump himself even funded drag shows and all that at Trump Tower. There were drag shows at Trump Tower in Manhattan, and he funded it. Like there's so much hypocrisy going around that they don't even see it. They don't even want to believe it. It's so hilarious.
That's very true. That's very true. Well, hey guys, I think we should probably end it because we're over 2 hours, about 2 hours 15 minutes now. So, you guys ready to cap it off for the night?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join in and weigh in, and
Really good
hopefully
discussions.
our LGBTQ community, our indigenous community, and everybody in between can align ourselves, against the system, right? The system was designed to take away Aboriginal rights. We weren't allowed to vote until the 60s on our own land. So that's something to think about, some food for thought. So let's work together as allies and stop these powers and ideologies from controlling who we want to identify ourselves as, and where we come from and where we want to go from here, right? That's our right, not theirs. It's our choice. It'll never be theirs. I'll fight and die for that.
And we do need to hold more discussions like this together as well. Like we don't need to stop these discussions. We need to keep them going together and with other people who are like-minded as well. Like we need to bring more people on with panels like this. Like after my computer gets out of the shop and all that, I'm gonna take next month. I have an organization called Revolution Evolution, which I would like to host a panel as well with everybody on this issue and bring more like-minded people to the table and have more discussions like this in the future, because we don't need to stop at just this discussion. We need to continue keeping the ball rolling. We need to keep the fire burning.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm more than happy to do another discussion like this and maybe try to think of more topics. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
I just felt like right now the trans community was really under attack, and it's a good time to really talk about this stuff. So.
And
the
need
trans
to
community is always under attack, actually. So it needs definitely.
We need to continue these talks to get more people talking, get more voices on, and maybe have y'all on one of my panels, because I would like to do a series of panels in the future.
Sure, I'm in.
A whole series.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Hit us up. Let us know. All right, I'm going to end this, you guys. I'm getting kind of tired. So it's been about 2 hours, 15 minutes now. Let's go ahead and end this. Thank you, everybody, for speaking tonight. I will upload this on SoundCloud and everything else. And so, yeah, you can look for this episode on SoundCloud, Amazon Music, all that good stuff. So, yeah, thank you guys for sharing and participating. And I'm out. Love you guys.
Have a good night. Love you too.